All right, good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday, August 20th. Welcome to the Select Board meeting. I'll introduce the Select Board members. To my right is Francine Tishman, and then to her right is John Martin. I believe Chris Fowles is going to be coming over from the Assessors meeting, and Ed Gibson, our Town Administrator. So we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There she is. Hello, Chris. Welcome. And actually, Matt Rowland is unable to be here tonight. In keeping with our starting off with gems of wisdoms and words of gratitude, I just wanted to say thank you to Boy Scout in town, who this Saturday actually organized a first annual Run for the Cupboard, an awareness-raising 5K road race that collected $3,305 for the Southampton Community Cupboard, a local food pantry. And he is a member of the Boy Scout Pack 210, and he's also an entering senior at Hampshire Regional. And just so you know, the cupboard is operated on the second and fourth Saturday of every month from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And so non-perishable items, produce, meat are all available at the pantry for anyone from Southampton and neighboring communities. So thank you very much to our Boy Scout. I have two other announcements. One is the Senior Center is, again, for the second time, putting together a Go for Life Family Fun Walk. It's in September on the 21st, 10 a.m. Last time they raffled off a Fitbit, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fun things happening on the 21st of September. And we also have the last of the concerts happening this Wednesday. It's Dan Kane and Fred Marion at the Corner Park. And then, of course, the free concert at Lions Chicken Barbecue is on the 21st of September at 6 p.m. So any other announcements or words of gratitude or anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention in the same issue of the Gazette is a Southampton resident, Tim Gerard, who will represent the United States in an international skills trade competition in Russia. And he's a graduate of Smith Vocational. He majored in plumbing, and so he'll be competing in the plumbing competition. And it's something like, I wrote it down here somewhere, like 69 countries are represented in this competition. So I couldn't see in the article when it's being held. I'm assuming that it's very soon. But anyway, there he is. So wait there. So I guess, given what Rini just talked about in terms of Max and this guy, it's really nice to see young people in Southampton succeeding.
Absolutely. And also Celebrate Southampton is coming up. Did you want to, the date is the 14th, Saturday, coming up. And did you want people to reach out to you if they're able to attend and or help?
Hi, Tammy Walunas, 298 College Highway. Yes, I am co-chair with Becky Nimmons on Celebrate Southampton. People have been asking about helping or volunteering. You can contact us on Facebook under Celebrate Southampton 01073, or you can email at clarkchapman1827@gmail.com. And we've been asked about what the events are going to be. The picnic is our big event, and we're drawing family-friendly activities to be going on. We do have people coming in and singing and doing a couple things, but more or less it's the big picnic and the bake-off, the bake contest.
Great.
For that day. And we have other things, there's farms coming in, we have a barnyard coming in. We're hoping to get a few more antique cars. They have a big event up in Vermont that same
really?
weekend.
Same day? Oh, that's too
Yeah,
bad.
this whole weekend. So please reach out to us, and for those that have my home phone number, they can always call me at home.
Okay, good.
Thank
Now,
you.
September what again?
September 14th.
14.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it actually begins at 10 o'clock, Tammy, right?
Yeah.
Just timing, just begins?
Yes. Memory hour starts at 10 at the Senior Center to 11, and then 11:30, the wagon should be getting going for the parade down, and the picnic If people want to just meet up at Pavilion at noon, that works out also, and it goes on until 4.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, we don't have any appointments, and we don't have any hearings, so we have 2 presentations. The first is Charlie Kinnicky, Emergency Management Director, duties, responsibilities, and time commitment regarding making the Emergency Management Director position a stipend position. Hi, Charlie.
Typically, you don't see me, you get texts from me. And usually those
When it's an
texts,
emergency.
they have a picture of something that has fallen in the town of Southampton and blocked our road and shut the power down. This position, just to give you a little history, if you jump back some 10 years ago or so, it was basically under the highway department to take and have the highway superintendent manage this. Back then, there wasn't a lot of activity in the emergency management field relative to a town of this size. That started building itself out. Then we hired a new highway superintendent who didn't have any background in this. We've had a new police chief, a new fire chief, and so Don Snyder picked up the baton and said he would work towards this. Don was in emergency preparedness, such as I, with the state, and he was trying to bring things together. I must be candid, Don tried to do as best he could with everything, but he was finding that it was in such its infancies, and he was finding out the time commit was way beyond what he wanted to commit, that he stepped down. So I picked up the baton, and for the last 2 years, I've been working on everything from our emergency management plans to our response stuff to our MOUs and so on and so forth. But it's become very apparent to me that this position is requiring sometimes 5 to 10 hours a week. And it's hours where you drop everything you're doing and just responding to this, which is almost like deja vu for me, because when I was on the fire department way back when, that's the way the fire department was. And we used to just drop everything at the farm and go get the ambulance, go get the fire truck. It seems like I'm doing it again, full circle for me. Christy, you're laughing, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, okay. So at this point in time, I think the town board needs to seriously look at the fact that there needs to be some kind of compensation for the amount of time that's put in here. You're also seeing grants that are developing for the community. You've seen, like, the emergency generator was partly out of this office. You're seeing grants now for the water line developing.
Hazard mitigation grant, we really should go for
Yeah.
that.
So these things are, but they all come out of the emergency manager's
Right.
office. And they all are time commitments. The other part to this is we've been evolving. We've now established an emergency operations center in town. We've never had an emergency operations center that was actually a real room. And now we have a room set aside in the police station, desks, chairs, grease boards, television, private line that comes in for private communications. We're moving forward to put a laptop in there. And it won't be big city, but it will be something that Southampton will be able to coordinate stuff. And we've already used it once when we had the storm there that knocked out the power with all the winds.
Not the last one,
Not the last one, the
You're
one
right.
before. And it was invaluable for the police chief, the highway and fire department to work with me to try to bring in resources, and we declared a state of emergency at that time. It's only going to keep getting busier as time goes on.
Is there a current job description, Charlie?
As far as I know, and Ed can correct me, but there is no town job description. What there is in the emergency management plan,
Yeah.
and I think it's in your packet.
Yeah, we all got
There
it.
is a
Yeah.
overview of responsibilities for this, and it's quite a bit of,
It is a lot.
so,
Yeah, it might make sense, though, to have PQB take it from, the next step and actually come up with something more formal and maybe do a little bit of
Yeah, that way we have it,
analysis.
and then we could put hours to it, like you're saying, and then we can come up with compensation.
Yeah, and maybe they could do some research on that as well.
I'm not looking at this like this is something that has to happen tomorrow,
Yeah.
but it's very obvious that by this coming year, we need to have something in
Yeah.
place to do this. Because the flip side of it is, if I no longer can do this for whatever reason, you're going to need to put somebody in that position.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. It doesn't necessarily mean we're doing anything for you, we're doing something for the position in the town to keep it going.
I've felt for a long time that we're very fortunate because Don Snyder is a longtime emergency planning
Yeah.
person, you, Sharon Hart, and Meredith, my neighbor, is the health director for Northampton, and then Sharon's the health director for South Hadley. I mean, we have a lot of expertise. We're always one disaster away from, it all comes down to how you communicate and how you manage it, from weather to contaminants to lead to you name it, active shooters, sadly. I just think that we definitely have to have a tight system for responding.
Yeah, I think as the town grows, we're starting to be more formalized in a lot of things,
Yeah.
which is good.
Chris, do you want to say something?
Well, just one of the things that struck my attention was one of the tabs on here as one of the potential duties was just coordinating and providing training and drills for the citizens of the town. I mean, just knowing what to do and where to go, who to contact, and how to even act in an emergency, depending on the kind of emergency it is. So I think that, as things develop, I mean, that I would hope would become a feature, a couple of times a year or something that would have to involve people to really understand how to do that. I think it's a very important position that we need to be prepared. I mean, we've seen too many things in this crazy world, and we can't be predicting what may or may not happen, and we may as well be ready rather than behind the 8 ball.
We'll never be 100% ready, but if we get planning in place, we at least know who our partners are in the local community to try to make
Right.
things happen.
Sure.
As for training and facilities, yes, but appreciate the fact, this thing is actually in its infancies in this town.
Yeah.
No, I realize that, yeah.
I mean, I used to be an instructor in weapons of mass destruction basic entry course. I don't think anybody wants that training,
I don't.
no?
It was even scary going through the initial emergency planning ones when I was on the Board of Health, just to think about incident command and all the terminology is a little frightening, but it's a
Yeah.
reality. It's totally has to happen. So I think the next step then would be to take the document that you've given us. If there's anything else that you want to share with us that you think would be helpful, and I'd ask PQB to start using our template for like a job description with the idea that it would be, how many hours a week did you say usually, or per month?
I'm figuring 5 to 10
5 to
hours
10?
a week. The problem with this thing is, like I gave that
Yeah.
2011 thing, that was every 60 days responding to a state of emergency. Out of that, a few of them were actually presidential emergencies. You can't tell.
Yeah, I know.
I can only give you an educated guess and assume that we'll probably have 2 emergencies in the sense that we declare an emergency in a
Yeah.
year. And
think
the
that's
rest of them,
realistic.
like the last storm, sure, I was down there, we were doing stuff, but we didn't declare an emergency, but I was still burning time being
Right,
there.
right. I went down there too, and our tree warden and Charlie were out there, with the
Bonding.
police.
It's almost, you mentioned the tree warden, the animal officer. It's that type of position where you don't know how many hours it's
Right,
going to
right.
be, but when you need the person, you need the person.
Yeah.
Right.
And those are official jobs now.
And so much of it is communication, getting word out where you can charge your phone if something happens, just what roads are open, what gas station. I mean, there's a huge amount of infrastructure, communication, and coordination. So-
We just got another round of grants coming in for about $2,700 that we're going to have to apply for by the end of September. The first thing we were looking at was an LED board to notify residents. That projected cost was over $8,000. It's like, okay, what do you do with what you have?
Yeah.
The Open Space Committee has talked and really wants to apply for the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant, which really should come out of the EMD office. So I'm hoping that we could.
They can draft a proposal, so I have something to look at that we could sit down and talk.
Yeah, I think we already have interested people that are willing and interested in applying for that, so we'll,
But the key is to draft a proposal.
right.
Don't assume the EMD is going to have the proposal draft for them, because I don't know what the actual concept of things
Yeah.
are. It's like the water department wanting funding to do the water line. I was aware that they had that problem. I put in the request for the funding.
Right.
They have to take and follow
Right.
through with it, with the engineering and everything else to move forward.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of opportunity, and we've had some success with the grants, thanks to this particular committee. So they're the ones that helped out with the Palmer Meadow Water and also the Glendale. So I think that we're on a roll.
Okay.
Good. So thank you, Charlie. Anybody else?
Do you need a motion to get this going, or?
Sure, that would be good.
Okay.
You always walk into it.
Good idea.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we send the emergency management director's tasks to the PQB so they can formalize a proper job description.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
And we'll follow up with Matt, too, who's the liaison at PQB, just so he's up on that.
yeah, my sense would be you're going to be working with them anyways.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
If you have any other materials you want to forward their way, go ahead.
Okay.
All right,
Very
thanks a
good.
lot, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Good seeing everybody.
Yep,
I did.
Chris.
Okay, so I thought I wanted to do.
Okay. Next, we have Jen Ramsey, Easthampton Media Presentation for new audio-video equipment for the Town Hall First Floor Meeting Room. Hi, Jen.
Hi there, Jen Ramsey, Easthampton Media.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I brought with me two of our board of directors, Dan Diamond and Robert Floyd, as well as we have our staff, Tim Riley, here tonight. I'm here to, one quick thing, a follow-up on the previous presentation. We can help get out some communication about emergency preparedness. If anybody wants to come to us and we can create some videos or do an interview with somebody, we're happy to help get that word out.
That would be a good way to utilize their services for training purposes.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention that. We're happy to collaborate, reach out. So I'm here to talk about our equipment, finally. I started the equipment upgrade process in January 2019. It was a little over a month after I got hired. By speaking with our board of directors, Ed Gibson, and our staff about what the issues and needs are. On January 15th, I reached out to Gary Pink. He's the account executive and systems engineer of Integrated Solutions Group. They are a AV company who design and install AV equipment for various companies. I knew Easthampton Media had worked with him in the past, and my predecessor had already been working on the equipment upgrade with him, so I reached out to him in January to just see where that was at. We determined the needs had changed since then, so I had to start fresh. It took a few months of research, detective work, and needs assessing before I had an actual scope of project to go to bid with at least 3 companies. I reached out to colleagues all over New England to learn from them and get recommendations of companies that design and install broadcast equipment for PEG access. On May 8th, I met with my board of directors to focus our efforts on the bid process. Throughout May, I contacted 3 other companies besides Integrated Solutions Group. One wouldn't quote us until August or September because they were booked up. One came for a site visit, balked at the messy wiring situation here, and wanted us to pay up front to send his installation crew just to give us a quote. So, the third company was professional and knowledgeable, but we last left off needing to schedule a call, and they were on vacation. We got a preliminary bid from them, and it was comparable in price to the ISG bid, Integrated Solutions Group. During this process, I learned a lot from the AV companies, did a site visit at Focus Springfield to check out their city council setup, which is similar to what we wanted, and attended a national conference to network with colleagues in community media and PEG access. I kept in touch with the original AV company, Integrated Solutions Group, and Gary Pink has been the easiest to speak with, the most understanding of our needs, and I'd like to recommend moving forward with his bid. I'm going to hand out our proposal. If you want to take one and pass it,
Thank you.
and then that is the bid.
Okay.
So when we were given the original materials, there was one of 2 proposals that had different kinds of
This is the same
microphones.
thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are you advocating a particular kind?
Yes, so I'm only giving you one. I'm giving you the one that we recommend. If you wanted to talk about something different, we can talk about that. But
That's what we have.
Hang on one second, wait until everybody gets there.
We have those on our packet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I am having a hard time getting my computer, so I'll just take them here.
sure.
So as a municipal board, we'd have to put them out to bid ourselves,
Is that,
correct? As a municipal board, we would need to do our own bidding, correct?
okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
I informed you that the other day, so.
Yeah, until the other day, I was unaware of that. So I had done all this legwork, hoping to bring to you a solution, and this is what I've come up with. If you have to go out to bid yourselves, I'm happy to help with that process. We can get you in touch with all the companies that we've been in touch with, whatever you need.
So a question, this money, is it the town's money or is it coming from ECAT?
It's coming from, so the, would you want to go ahead and explain it's a pass-through from charter?
So
Right.
I just wonder if there's a way for us not to have to do a bid if ECAT used their own funding.
The funding sits in our account, so, yeah.
Okay.
And I already tried circumventing the process and see if ISG might be on the state contract bid list, but no.
Okay. So I was under the impression that we were to bring you a proposal and do our own bidding process, so my apologies. But I think the package that he's proposed is very good, and if you can include him in your process, I think he's the best to work with, and we've worked with him in the past.
Can you speak to the mic issue?
Sure.
That was one of the things that was a
So
particular
when I spoke with spoke with 4 companies total. Most of them were saying that a ceiling-mounted microphone is not good for this room. It's echoey, there's a slanted ceiling, you're going to have sound waves bouncing all over the place. A ceiling-mounted mic is not going to be the best solution for what we need to do, which is record your meetings for broadcast. So in the proposal, the option that I recommend is they are gooseneck mics, but they're much shorter and have a longer pickup range. So they're 5 inches tall and have a pickup range of 24 inches. The current ones you're using are, I don't know how many inches, they're over a foot.
Like 18.
And they only have 6 to 12 inches of pickup range. So your mouth has to be 6 to 12 inches from it to pick you up properly. So the mic that's in this proposal is a very good microphone, which has a longer pickup range. So if you are sitting back, it will still pick you up.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because once we've got them, we've got them. If this is supposed to be 6 to 12 inches, I just got a text, I was talking like this, saying they couldn't hear me. So if this is going to be here
Yeah.
and it's 24, can we get buy one, and test it, and give it maybe to the chair and put it in there so we can test that?
If you'd like
I'd hate to get
purchase
all
one,
5 of them, yeah.
we'd have to go through the town.
Well, not if you're buying just one, for
Well,
that price.
do you have any
You have
of
one we
those?
could
We
borrow.
don't.
You don't?
We don't have those ones. The option 2 that's in this proposal is these mics, but the problem
I
with
don't,
these.
yeah, there's too much shuffling of paper.
Yeah, the problem with these shuffling of paper picks up really well, and if you put your paper on top of it, it's going to pick that up. So, I mean, we can get one of those mics. It would just, the money would have to come from that fund. I can work that out if you'd like.
But is there any,
I can order one ourselves.
Yeah.
I can order one ourselves.
Yeah.
The question is, will it work with the equipment we have?
I need to find that out. I'm not sure.
Because it doesn't make any sense to order it if it doesn't tie into
Yeah.
that.
I can find that out for you.
and the other thing, we haven't really had a document camera or way of showing some of the documents we show. So if we purchase this, it's pretty substantial. It's coming from our
Yeah, so-
customers in Southampton. So is there a way to test it in this room without having the liability of purchasing it all? Is there some sort of a 30-day, 60-day, if we go with this particular company?
I'm not sure. I know this proposal is to purchase and install and to train our staff. So, I mean, I think we'd have to do our own, purchase for 30 days and return it if we were to do that.
Is there any place that has some or all of this equipment already installed that we could visit?
Each AV company,
Go and buy and test and...
so each AV company kind of does their own engineering. They figure out what equipment works with what.
They put it together.
So I could go to other stations and say, do you have this particular switcher, but they might not have this particular microphone. So,
Okay.
each company that you
All
go
right.
out to bid with has its own design. I will tell you that with this bid, there will be 3 HD cameras, a new production switcher with the ability to create titles and graphics, new microphones, new audio mixer, a new digital projector with wireless connectivity for the presenter. So you hook your laptop up wirelessly, and that signal feeds back to the switcher. So yes, we'll be able to take the presentation that will be
Goes in
here
here.
live as well,
Right from
without filming it on a camera, because that doesn't
Okay.
look very good.
Well,
But
that
yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
you'll have a digital display.
I'm sure Ed's familiar with it, but we can build in, if we're doing our own bid, we can build in a performance spec that gives us what we want, and we have X amount of days to do that and prove it, and we can put a performance bond in there too. So I think we can build that performance in.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, you were aware that we have been not happy with the equipment
Yes.
for many, many years.
Yes.
And so you can tell there's a lot of concern here about spending money of our townspeople's
Yes.
charter contract money. And so I just want to make sure that we're going to be getting good service, communication, and equipment.
Yes, I'm very confident in this package here. But again, if you need to go and do your own bid process, I can help. Whatever I can do, let me know. I do want to mention the last select board meeting that did not go out live. We immediately, one of our staff immediately went to the station, checked all of our equipment. We called Charter, put in a ticket, and they fixed it the next day, an hour after I was able to call them. The problem was a piece of equipment at the Charter head end froze. So that's why we were black. We were black in Easthampton as well. So, you know, that was beyond our control. A lot of the other issues that, since I've been here, have been with Charter's fiber or connections or something.
Well, it's been equipment too.
Okay.
Sort of hand-me-down equipment, so
Yeah.
to speak. So that's, I think when I'm listening to people from town, what I hear consistently is they want it live.
Yes,
And they also want decent mics.
Yes.
That's what we consistently hear.
yes.
The question here, would Charter, I mean, how compatible is this equipment with the technology that they're offering us?
With the technology that Charter?
I mean, all the hookups, I mean, if the equipment works, but
Yeah.
at their end, it doesn't work.
Yeah, so it's
Is it
compatible.
compatible with this, and we would have to run these specs by them to see if their system supports it?
I've already checked that, and yeah, we're all set. It should
Okay.
work just fine.
Now, I'm assuming, and again, Ed knows about this, this is your first go-through on something like this, so it's a learning curve for all of us. But if we do a bid, we have a pre-bid vendors meeting where we make it mandatory that all the vendors come in and discuss what we need. Would you be available
Yes.
to help out? 'Cause
Absolutely.
I think that would be important.
Absolutely. You know, given the anticipation and the desire for better equipment, I just took it upon myself to go through this whole process because I wanted to present you a solution. I didn't want to delay this any longer. Now, all these companies do book out far in advance. So in the proposal, I said we could book, if we book today, then they'll still won't be able to schedule an installation until November or December.
So we're looking at the beginning of the new year then.
Yeah.
But I'd rather get it right, and,
Yeah,
you know. and-
I agree.
But, I mean, we appreciate you doing this, but because we're a town, we have to go through the public bid process.
Yep.
Anything else you want to, I mean, we may or may not go with this depending on the bidding process, but is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of any equipment or any going forward?
Well, kind of the scope and timeline, I'd like to try to follow that. I mean, our staff is operating the equipment. In our agreement with the town, it's our responsibility to maintain and, you know, all that, operate and train people on it. So if anyone wants to learn how to run a select board meeting live, we're happy to sit down and train people. But I'd like to be part of that process just because we're going to be the end user.
Okay.
And where will the cameras be? You said 3.
Yeah.
One here, or all 3 in this room?
All 3 in this room. So these are the cameras currently. There's the third one up there. So they'll be in similar
Okay, but we
position.
have other meeting rooms where,
So
I mean,
that would
they're
be a
just being
whole other.
recorded, none of them are being live broadcast, but those cameras that
Those
we have
cameras are
there
a
will be
whole
the same?
separate
Okay.
situation. Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of that, though, that
Yeah.
is part of the contract going forward.
Yeah.
It was to equip 2 other locations, correct?
I believe Norris School.
Yep,
I don't know the other one.
library.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can certainly do that. My priority was to, first of all,
Yep.
fix the issues in this room, and second of all, re-outfit this room with new equipment, then move on to the next.
Yep.
So,
Any other questions or comments?
so how would, if the town were to do the bid process, how would that go? Like, who would I speak to be involved in that? Okay,
Our town administrator.
okay,
It all flows left.
There you go.
Yeah.
Downhill.
okay.
You want to explain to Jen and others what that process looks like?
Basically, as long as the select board basically refines it and accepts that we build this around the 6-inch gooseneck microphones, which sounds like the reasonable way to go, is that I will work with Jen to take the original specifications that ECAT put together here and all those other requirements and put them into a quote format with some performance specifications. We will then have to, because it appears that we'll be under $50,000, but one thing that I will have to put into this is prevailing wages, which I'm sure was not another thing that was quoted on to ECAT. But on the assumption that it's under $50,000, we can go through the quote process, which means I'll have to list this in the central register and on combis, and then we'll move forward and see what we get back for responses from that. And depending on how we word the performance section of it, if we want to interview and hear from all the people that provide quotes on it, or maybe the top 3 or what have you, we can go from there.
I would almost, like I said, do a pre-bid conference just to get the people in here so they know what we're looking for.
Yeah, we can do that.
And I don't know, I mean, if Jen, I guess, and Ed, if you really think this equipment is the equipment, we can use this as the equipment in the spec or equal to.
Right, and that's why.
That would be a lot easier to.
Yeah, we would be required to put and or equal.
Right,
Yeah. You can't make it a proprietary spec
Yeah.
with the name
How long does
brands here.
something have to be out for bid when you do that?
I would probably suggest something for this to be out there probably for about 4 weeks. Just to get good responses on it.
And would you assume that companies such as this, would be actively bidding different jobs for municipalities?
Yes.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have to prompt anybody who's already bid, or are you allowed to do that?
Well, you can send something out, and I would recommend
Yeah.
that send something out saying, we have a bid listed at this site, please
Right.
see it. You can't give them all the information, but just direct them to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that quote is supposed to be confidential. So,
Okay.
the
Well,
pricing.
you just gave it to a municipality. You sent it to me in an email, so it's
Right.
not confidential.
Okay, well, okay.
All right, and it might change since we're adding some
Yeah.
performance issues and
And prevailing
bringing up
wage
prevailing
and all that,
wages and all of that. So
Right.
that might have to go up, and if it goes over $50,000, that changes things, so.
Okay.
Anyway, can we have a motion then, or does, before we do that, did you want to say anything, Robert, as our Southamptonite board member?
Robert Floyd, 15 East Street. Thank you. I have some notes, but I'm not going to read them. I have a point of information question, John and Ed. If delivery is a problem kind of going into next year, is a point of information, is there an option for Easthampton Media to contract directly with the vendor? Does that still
That's what I
come
was
in
asking,
compliance with the town going off competitive bidding?
But Ed was saying that's our money, it's dumped into our account.
The funding's still coming
Money
from us,
comes to
so
us.
I would say no.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was my thought.
And the one concept I recommend is an officer of the vendor meet with Easthampton Media Executive Director Jen and a select board member before a contract pre-bid is signed with the vendor, ensure proper manufacturing installation schedule was established, expedited, and followed with progress reports.
All that good stuff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jen, just how long would it take if we decide we go to contract? How long do you think this whole installation thing, procurement of each of it, of all of the equipment and installation?
What Gary, the representative that I've been working with, said was he's booking a few months out, and he'll have a few people in here for about a week doing the installation. Doing the installation and training our staff.
Okay.
And for that, we would have to
Not use it.
not use this room, correct?
Yeah, so we would make sure it's on a night when there's no select board meeting.
And Ed, I know it's going to be a couple weeks away, but once this gets ready to be posted, if you let us all know, because I work with a lot of AV contractors for the state, and I'll just send an email out saying, please go here, and maybe we can get some more people interested.
Great.
Great.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Any other questions for
Yeah.
Jen or any
I just
other?
want to say Ryan and Tim, of course, do a great job for us.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to have them.
Yes, we're very happy with them.
Yeah.
All right.
And does anybody like to make a motion that we ask Ed to work with Jen and put out a bid for this?
Yeah,
Work?
I'll make a motion that Ed put together a formal RFP process so we can have the equipment on a competitive bid and work with Jen and the select board, I think, and anybody else that's pertinent to make sure we have the specs together.
Someone like to
I'll second.
Francine? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who seconded that?
Chris? Oh, no, did you, Francine? You did?
Yes.
Francine did.
Okay.
And if you need anything on the bid part, let me know, Ed. I'll be glad to help.
Oh, I'm sure I will be picking your brain. Thank you, Jen.
No
Okay.
problem.
Thank you very much, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
And thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Next, we have reports. So, Select Board reports. Who would like to start?
Oh, I'll give it a go. Had a couple meetings this week. Seems like it's been meeting week all of a sudden. As part of the Bylaws Advisory Committee, they held their meeting yesterday, and we had basically a full committee meeting and kept working on the various bylaws that we're looking at as part of the general overview of bylaws, working on some with the Board of Health on trash hauling and on recycling. We also had Chief Illingsworth with us to talk a lot about the idea of solicitation, what kind of a bylaw might we want for soliciting in town. And so we've gotten some good information on that to figure out how we might want to go forward and draft some language on that. And we're working on various others from kennel licenses and dogs and a variety of others that we're working on. So we're making headway. I think working a little bit more in pairs to try and expedite things. And it's feeling like we're making some movement forward, I think. Still a lot to do, and especially as we put it all together, there's going to have to be a lot of rearranging, I think, of the bylaws. The way they're set up now, the way they're numbered even is kind of convoluted, so we'll probably have to do some restructuring as well. The second thing, probably the Concom meeting last night. I attended part of that before I had to run to a different meeting. And probably the main notification there is just the severe number of downed trees in the Manhan Meadow Sanctuary after our microburst. Just a major number of trees from the slides that were shown. And these are not little saplings that somebody can go out with their chainsaw. These are real serious.
And it was so discouraging to
After the
organize
cleanup.
13 volunteers to clean it up,
Exactly.
and now it
Yeah,
is
and this is-
unbelievably bad.
Barely 2 weeks or so after that cleanup. So it's really a difficult situation and something that they're going to continue thinking about and deciding in terms of what to do and whether they want to invest some money to get things fixed and how to do that. There may not be some easy choices there given the lack of money. So that's a challenge that they will be facing. So probably those are the two big things at the moment.
Okay. Francine?
Okay, yes, just to mention, last night we had a joint, this select board had a joint meeting with the Norris School Committee to appoint to fill a vacancy on the school committee, and John Lumbra was nominated and approved and sworn in last night and participated in his first meeting, so that committee is now complete. The Master Plan Implementation Committee also met last night. We are accelerating the process. We will be outlining our priorities, and our plan is to have that list complete by October. And at that time, we would request a joint meeting with the Select Board, so together we could outline the next steps so that we can get this moving. I mean, there are, I don't know, hundreds of captured utterances in the master plan implementation report that we're reviewing, and we know we can't do it all. We're trying to consolidate it. There are some things that are already outdated, and we're looking ahead to the future. We know we can't do everything, but we need to set what those priorities are, have the select board agree, and if need be, take it to the town and get their input and start to move forward. So that's it for me.
Okay, well, it's slow for my committees. No safety complex committee, planning committee was canceled last week, and the next FinCom is not till next Monday. So I've had a good 2 weeks.
Good. I can't log on, just got a new computer with the tax holidays, so I'm just going to go on memory, which is always a little frightening. Board of Health met on the 16th of July, and their minutes are draft, no reports. Open Space is meeting this Thursday. Continue to work on evaluating a fund in town for trail maintenance and acquiring lands. Anything else you want me to say about that, Chair? No? Okay. And COA, there was actually a pickleball court ribbon cutting Monday. That was pretty exciting. Thanks to the COA and also the Park Department and the Friends of Southampton COA. There are 2 pickleball courts, so we had a nice ribbon cutting and a demonstration, which was very hot. Also, they've applied for a community outreach grant through Highland Valley. And I'm sure there's other things that I'm not remembering from the last meeting, but anyway, very busy. The Council on Aging is very busy.
A question for you on pickleball, since not many people know pickleball, probably don't own equipment. Does the town have any equipment if somebody wants to try it out before they go buy equipment?
Yeah, actually, we do. There, I believe, are probably a total of 16 paddles. That would allow 16 people to play. The plan is to have half of the equipment available through the Council on Aging and the other half of the equipment available through the Parks Department, because this is a joint effort. It would be, there's times reserved for seniors on Mondays and Thursdays from 9 to 11 to use the courts, but other than that, it's available to the public and the equipment. We have to work out the logistics, though, of where the equipment is, how you access it, who do you have to see, where it's locked. But we have the nets, we have the balls, we have the paddles, we have instructions.
There are also 2 new benches at Conant Park by the court, so that's nice.
Yeah, if you just want to come and watch.
So I'm asking the questions myself, but everybody else out there. So if I wanted to start playing pickleball, are nets up there where I can go to Dick's and get some paddles and balls, or do you have to put nets every time, or how does that work?
We have to put nets every time.
Okay, so
And we have 4 nets.
And they're still working out the details of, are we getting a shed to be able to put it down there?
Gotcha.
Or is it going to be, right now it's kind of like set it up at certain days of the week and sign it out of the senior center.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Well,
Until we come up with a better plan. But right now, every Monday and Thursday between 9 and 11, the equipment will be out there, the nets will be set up, people can show up. Other times you'd have to sign up, as Rini said,
For the
with
seniors,
COA.
9 to 11 those days?
Yes, those 2 days, but anybody else, if they want the equipment, and for now, for lack of having it available through any other means, still contact the senior center, even if you're not a senior, to get the equipment. And
What were you going to say, Ed?
No.
And actually, technically, if you use the middle court of the 3, which uses a tennis net, you could show up with your own paddles and ball and not need the portable nets. But if 2 sets of people wanted to play, then it comes into effect that you really need at least one of the portable nets.
I noticed when there were pictures sent from the ribbon cutting on social media, there was a lot of interest. Is there going to be a demonstration on pickleball? So it might be a good thing to talk about. It would be nice for the park department maybe to work together and do a little demo. That'd be fun.
Or go to YouTube. Or go to YouTube.
Yeah, right.
That's where I'm going to go, because I have no clue.
That's true. But you don't always get the answers that you have.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other reports before we ask Ed to do his? Okay, Ed.
All right. Let's see, updates. There is a meeting with FEMA and MEMA for the pre-award meeting for the hazardous mitigation grant for the Manhan River Crossing water main replacement tomorrow at 1 p.m. here at Town Hall. If there are 1 or 2 members of the Select Board who are able to attend this pre-award informational meeting, that will be very helpful. So I don't know if you...
I do plan to attend.
Okay.
Is anybody else planning
I'm not
on?
available tomorrow, unfortunately.
I'm not going to be around.
Francine?
I'm available if
Okay.
you need.
So we're going to meet first in the upstairs conference room and then go over to the bridge?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Yeah, and Charlie
tomorrow.
Konecki, the
Okay,
Emergency
yeah.
Management Director, and Jim Malunas and Jim Slattery from the Water Commissioners will also be attending.
Good.
Let's see, we have received a copy of Town Council's review for the CER terms and conditions, which went along with their proposal for their consulting work during the Southampton water infrastructure improvement projects of the pumping station and the well rehabilitation. They have recommended several amendments to those terms and conditions, including elimination of the last sentence in Section 2, which limits the town's time to bring a claim against CEI to 120 days from substantial completion, while the law actually allows for up to 3 years. Recommending that Section 12 be modified so that Section 12 only indemnifies or is indemnifying the town, or adding the words "to the extent permitted by law" at the beginning, as if the town were to indemnify CEI, that would constitute an unfunded liability to the town. They also suggest that Section 13, the first paragraph, be removed in its entirety, as this limits CEI's liability for any error, omission, or negligence to $159,000. And lastly, if the town has not received proof of insurance from CEI, that it does so to meet its contractual requirements. And I do believe we have that insurance certificate, but those are 3 recommendations. And I bring it up not only for the proposal that the Board of Selectmen signed at their last meeting, which was the one that was sent off to KP Law for their review, but there is another amendment to that contract, which is on the agenda later this evening,
Right,
for some
turtles.
additional required work due to, I believe it is...
Turtle habitat.
Yes, exactly. So keep that in the back of your minds. I'm going to skip C because I'll report on that one under the Pomeroy Meadow Road update. Randall Kemp has completed the necessary filing forms online for the underground storage tank reporting for the highway garage, which was one of the topics at the last meeting that you allowed him to act as the signatory for that. We are currently waiting for the appraisal report from Maya for the police department cruiser, which was totaled back in June. The good news is we had replacement cost coverage on that cruiser, which means they will cover the cost of a replacement. However, the bad news is that there are not any 2019 model year Ford police interceptors available throughout the country at this time, so they have to wait for the information on the new model year 2020s to be available to find out what equipment may be transferred from the older cruiser to the 2020 cruiser, or if that any can be transferred at all to cost out the replacement cost that we would receive to go out and purchase a new one. Procurement, the request for quotes for the replacement of library shingled roof and rubber membrane roof replacement will be going out next week. I am currently working on the request for bids for the police, fire, EMS radio console replacement and the police dispatch, and the replacement of the dump truck with plow for the highway department. We do expect delivery of the new SUV cruiser for the police department, which was purchased through the capital program, in about 2 weeks. The fire department EMS had a small incident with the newest ambulance last week, doing some small damage to one of the ambulance doors, a scrape, and knocking down part of a handrail at the Holyoke Medical Center. Old business, the Finance Committee has voted to allow, the elementary school to utilize their remaining sidewalk repair capital funds to replace additional sections of the school sidewalk as required. So that was a second vote after the Select Board also voted to do the same thing.
Okay.
I am working with Emily Slotnick from PVPC to set up a meeting of the pertinent departments for our update to the open space and recreation plan. And then upcoming Select Board meetings for September are the 3rd and the 17th.
Can I just ask, Ed, do we have any liability for the damage done at the Holyoke Medical Center?
Yes, we do.
Is that covered through our insurance?
It should be, yes.
Okay.
Our deductible, but the other thing, is our insurance going to cover that quote-unquote scrape on the door? 'Cause that's our newest ambulance.
That's our newest ambulance, and it all comes down to, will they cover it? Yes. Is the damage greater than what our deductible is? I
If it's
don't honestly know.
If it's not, I would recommend the fire department fund it out of their budget to fix it, because that's a brand new, pretty much new ambulance, and I don't think it should be going around all dinged up.
Yeah, it's only a year old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we going to talk again about, Rini, the CEI terms and
Yeah.
conditions?
Mhm.
Okay. We need to vote on that.
Yep. Is there anything else, any other questions before we do that? On anything else?
No, that's all I've got.
Okay.
No, that's later.
About what? Okay.
Cindy Palmer, 71 Glendale Road. You said that you're working with PVPC about a meeting to set up about the open space and recreation. Is that a meeting that somebody else can attend? I'm the new chair for the Open Space Review Committee.
I don't see
And
any
when
reason
is that?
why. I don't see any reason why, someone else.
Did I miss the date on it, Ed?
No, I said we're setting it up.
Oh, you're setting it,
so don't
okay.
have it yet.
So if you could remember and include me, I'd love to be a part of that. Thanks.
I'll try to do my best, Cindy. You're welcome.
Okay, so I just want to mention about the first item, that the meeting tomorrow, we have not been awarded the grant. This is just a pre-meeting where they're going to discuss that, although we're, hoping that that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the pre-meetings we had for both Glendale Road for the land grant and for
Right.
Pomeroy Meadow Road
Right.
for the DWSP.
But it did pass a couple of check marks
It
to get
did,
us to this
right.
point, so it's a
Exactly.
positive meeting.
Oh, yeah, I think that we're very optimistic. So this would mean replacing the pipe that it's actually piped from Fulmer to Brickyard.
Right.
But in particular, though, a water pipe goes right into the Manhan River.
Right.
And so it's to remove it and put it underneath the bridge. And this money would go towards doing that, which will then allow the dam to be removed.
This portion of the money would allow for the water main to be put on the bridge.
Right.
Okay.
Rather than below.
Not
The-
anything above or below?
Well, not removing the old water
Right,
main. That would
that-
be funded actually by the same funding that would go towards removing the dam
bridge.
project.
Right.
Yeah,
Just puts the new one on,
Yes.
under the bridge.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're hopeful about that. Okay, so the CEI terms and conditions, Ed, so this was, went out to bid, and this company came in. This is the one where they end up adjusting the budget because the bid came in a little bit higher than the original bid.
They're the engineering consultant that the water department uses that develop the specs to go out for the actual construction bid. So the proposal that the Board of Selectmen voted to sign for the water department at the last meeting is for CEI's consulting work, which would be through the actual construction phase of the construction of the pumping station on the Easthampton line and the well rehabilitation. So they would basically act at overseeing the project.
So it looks like when KP reviewed this, they made some recommendations.
Correct.
And so certainly, if we're allowed up to 3 years on the, I mean, to go to 120 days seems
A very big.
extremely risky. So would we be making a vote to support these recommendations and then going back to CEI?
Yeah, basically what I would recommend to the board, that the board make a motion and vote to accept making these changes to the terms and conditions, that we make those changes. Maureen, as the chair, you can initial them on behalf of the town. Then CEI would actually have to do the same as accepting those changes, and they would have to initial them also.
What kind of questions do you have about the recommendations, any?
Yeah, I only have one, and it's just based on a lot of experience with it, where it says, I'm referring to Section 12, the indemnification clause, where it says, to the extent permitted by law. I've run into many of these, and what our legal has made sure that we do is you put in to the extent permitted by Massachusetts law, because if you get sued in another state, that law may well allow the lawsuit to go through, where if it's pinned to the Massachusetts law, at least at this point, Mass law says you can't, because the indemnification is technically illegal, because it's, like they say here, unfunded liability. So I want to pin it to the Massachusetts law.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and I'll be glad to make a recommendation if there's no other questions, but.
No? And then did you want to also add the part at the end, removing the last paragraph, which limits their liability to only $159,000?
No, I want to adopt all the recommendations.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who made the motion?
I did.
John?
Chris? did you
With
say-
that one change, it says permitted by Massachusetts law.
Okay, so you just voted on that one?
No, let me rephrase it. I'll make a motion that we amend the original terms and conditions and incorporate all the recommendations from the legal counsel, with one change where in between by and law, we put Massachusetts, so it reads to the extent permitted by Massachusetts law.
All right, I'll second that.
Francine seconding.
Okay. Thank you.
Want to take a vote?
Yep, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'll make those changes, and then I'll bring it down to you at
Okay.
some point.
Yep.
Maybe after the meeting to have you initial it.
Sure. I think with the open space and recreation plan, I think, PVPC is, that was funded through them, and it involves some public outreach meetings. So hopefully Emily will be available sooner rather than later and get that ball rolling.
Yeah, she just got back from vacation,
Okay.
so.
Great. Because we are, the goal was to get it done by the end of the year, and that's needed for our grants for land and such.
Yeah, because I think at Concom, they had mentioned that they hadn't been consulted yet. They hadn't heard anything about
Yeah.
whether they were actually working on it or not, so that's good to know.
Okay, anything else on Ed's town administrator report? Okay, so everybody got a copy of the budget and expenditures review? Were there any questions about that? One of them was only a
Only the
month and a
expense
half into
report,
the
yeah.
fiscal year.
I did have a question. I don't know if Ed can answer it or not, but there are lines here where there's no number in the category of original budget, and yet there's some expenditure against it. So the items showing up as having been spent as 100% had no budget against it, had an expense, and they're charging the expense and showing 100%. There's a couple, I think one was a couple from the Board of Health and one from the fire truck maintenance.
If you go way down,
Yeah.
none of it's loaded.
So is it just a mistake that it's not there, or was money not appropriated?
It could be either. I'll find out.
Okay.
Any other questions on the expenditures?
No.
Or revenue?
No.
You want to give an update on the annual report, Ed?
What's that?
The annual report?
Oh, sorry, I'm still making these changes. Yes, and actually, we're only, we've got them all except one. Finance Committee still owes me theirs, which I am supposed to get. And Judy and I are editing or writing the welcome and the appreciation piece. And once we do that, it will be shipped off to the printer who's waiting for it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So
We're at the end of the
by the
line.
end of the month? By the end of the month?
I'm going to say beginning of the week, so,
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. So next time it'll be at the printer.
yes.
Okay, East Street Bridge, Mass Works update, anything on the East Street Bridge?
East Street Bridge is the engineering firm, John Furman, has been good enough to, I asked him to fill in some sections of that pre-contract form that Mass Works asked us to fill out and get back to him. He said that he's actually filled out just about all of the form for us, and he sent it off to one of their other engineering groups just for specifically the bridge engineering to take a look at to make sure he's got everything accurate. So I should have that back the end of the week, and I can send that back to Mass Works.
Great. And then, any questions on the East Street Bridge? And then, good news on the Pomeroy Meadow Road.
Yes, and now I can go back to my report and I can pull that piece out. The town has received the $216,162 reimbursement from the state for the acquisition of 68 Pomeroy Meadow Road through the State Drinking Water Supply Protection Grant. KP Law has sent the original conservation restriction, which was recorded, back to our town clerk, Lucy Dalton. And a reminder that the town, under one of the state conditions, still has to provide the state with a catch-up amended conservation restriction for the Howland Manhan property, which is a condition of receiving both the land grant for the Glendale Road property acquisition and the 68 Pomeroy Meadow Road property acquisition. So we have now received both our reimbursements, both for the land grant and the DWSRP. So
Great.
very good news.
And we had originally budgeted, or at least approved, some, if needed, bridge, but we didn't, that was just reappropriation, or there was no money that was spent waiting for the money, right?
What's that?
We didn't have to spend any money, and since it was a reimbursement grant, there was nothing that we had to, from the time of the closing until the time getting reimbursed for it, there was no money that we didn't have to use any kind of loan or anything.
We did enter into a short-term bond for that, for both of them, yes.
Okay, and what were the terms of them? Do you remember? Were they a year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which means probably around March of next year, we can roll that short-term into a long-term where it's necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
We actually
I mean,
had a-
and that will be on one of them. The other one can just get paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, we actually had to close on the property before we got this reimbursement, correct?
Right.
Absolutely, correct. And the thing that both Vicky, our town accountant, and I were concerned about is you never know how quickly the state will actually send you that reimbursement amount. So if we got to a point where after the end of the fiscal year, if we hadn't received it, that the Department of Revenue, DLS, could actually come in, and when they calculate our free cash, could actually deduct those amounts from our free cash calculation. And you know, especially with the $400,000 one, we could actually have possibly ended up in a negative free cash situation. So it was more prudent to do the bridge with the short-term note for those.
Any other questions about any of those projects? Okay, I guess we're on to new business then. Community host agreement, Vulcan LLC.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good, how are you? Thanks for your patience.
No problem. My name is Volkan Portal. Proposing, as you all know, cannabis
Did you say
retail.
where you live?
05 Nicholas Lane.
Thanks.
And I'm proposing a cannabis retail shop in Red Rock Plaza, and we're trying to get the host agreement together. And we had a meeting 2 weeks ago, as you all know, and we did some adjustments in that period, and I think Ed probably gave you guys the new adjustment sheets that we did, and I'm just hoping that that's significant enough that we can move forward.
And they would like to move forward as quickly as possible because they cannot apply to the state for their license until this host agreement has been agreed to by both parties. And, basically, they have agreed to the financial terms that the Select Board was looking for, the 3% of annual sales over the 5-year allowed life under the state statute, and also additionally a $10,000 per year donation to go towards education as far as whether you say substance abuse or underage use or whatever, and that it is a 5-year term. And the caveat to that is that they have submitted it on a host community agreement, which Attorney Evans drafted, rather than our own template. That is up to the board whether they, want to take action on that being in the form it's in, want to take it under consultation until the next meeting, or what have you, as far as that goes. But the financial terms that the Select Board was actually asking for at the last meeting, they have agreed to. And Attorney Evans apologizes. He would have liked to have been here tonight, but he is down in Maryland, and I think he just got into Bradley about 15 minutes ago, so that kind of threw a little kink into him not being here this evening.
Okay. So I had combined all the sample host agreements that we got from a lot of other towns, and they were very consistent with the 3%, and the $10,000 for 5 years was also to me, very satisfactory. What questions does the board have?
In comparing the two, the contract drawn up by your attorney and the contract drawn up by our town council, there are a couple of differences. One being there are qualifications for an independent audit each year of the records. There's no reference to that in. It all depends on which contract we go with. So I guess my question is, have you seen this, you and your attorney, our version?
He might have. I haven't. I've seen it. I haven't gone through the whole thing.
Okay.
I was under the assumption that when he created what he created, we kind of mostly mimicked Northampton and Easthampton, and what he and I, when we had a conversation, he just said, I just took out some of the stuff that it doesn't really mean anything much, and hopefully it won't disturb them from making the decision.
I'm just asking for.
Yeah, no, I haven't gone through the detail what he removed. I know we added some stuff, I believe, right?
Yeah, I actually requested that Attorney Evans add in a couple of clauses that were in the template from KP Law that weren't in his, and he did agree to do that for most of them. I can say, because actually we did talk a little bit about the clause that's in the KP contract, or in the KP agreement, and not in theirs as far as the requirement for the financial audit. And the way it's worded in KP laws, it's not that they have to do that every year, but if the town requested it. But what is in the HCA submitted by Attorney Evans is it's written substantially so that the 3% due to the town under the impact fee is also the same amount as the 3% local option sales tax that we picked up, which the state will look at. So the assumption here is that if the state sees something funny with the sales tax piece, they're actually going to be looking into that rather than us having to perhaps spend time and say, does anything look, odd or strange in the financial reports, and putting the burden on us to say, okay, could we have a professional financial audit of this?
But I guess in their version, there's no requirement for an annual review of the financial records in order to
Certified.
calculate, not to calculate the 3%, but to verify it.
Well, the system that we need to use, in my knowledge, is developed by the CCC. So the computer system that we're going to use, the point of sale system that we're going to use.
Yeah.
And they're pretty much tracking it from seed to sale. And they are actually the biggest auditor of all when it comes to this stuff through the state. So I think his point or assumption was, let the state audit you, not the town. But I mean, that's.
But we want to have the right to, if we need to. We want to have the right to. And if it's not in there, we won't be able to.
Yeah, and it's not in here.
Right, so we should have that.
Yeah.
Chris,
we can
did
put
you
that
want
in
to say
there,
something,
it's
Chris?
It was on a different issue. So.
Okay. Okay.
I don't have a problem with you putting that in there. I'm not here to take advantage of the town anyway, so.
Yeah, I know you're not, and I think
That
that
would be my only thing.
the 3% is very consistent with other towns, and the $10,000 is actually, we just had in the paper yesterday, the threefold increase in calls to poison control for toddlers from ingesting cannabis. So I think the opportunity to be able to provide education through, like I mentioned before, even the daycare center right next door to parents around safe, storage and use, and the schools, the Coley Dickinson urgent care, that there's going to be a lot coming out from CDC, DPH, and to be able to disseminate that information either through the Board of Health or other places, this will be very, very helpful to be able to do that. I think if there was an interest in expediting this, and I'm comfortable with the terms of it, but if there was an interest in expediting the contract, I would sign it tonight if it was on our lawyer's, host agreement, because they've already proposed that. So I'm just a little uncomfortable with signing another attorney's host agreement without our attorney looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So, I don't know who if you'd like to say anything else, otherwise my thought might be that I think we're comfortable, or is everybody comfortable with the the terms?
Can I propose something where maybe your the lawyers can look at that and make maybe those even changes, and you guys can sign it and give that to Ed, and I can just pick it up from him, so we don't have to keep going through the meeting process. Would that be?
Yep.
So you want us to sign it before the legal reviews it?
No. I'm saying,
Authorize someone after,
so,
if the.
yeah, have your lawyers review it, and she wants to feel comfortable about the audit, which I don't have a problem with, and so we can put that in, and then you guys can each sign and give it to Ed, and I can just, so I don't have to wait for the next meeting. That's all I'm proposing. That's all.
I just had one question. I'm quite comfortable with the terms in terms of the 3% and the 10,000, so thank you for meeting our desires in that regard. I think the only question that I think that we had talked about before that I'm not seeing as strong as it was in our agreement was about successor and assignment. So if something were to happen and you were
if I got
taken
sold
over, you were you merged with somebody else, I think the language that we had in the town agreement, the town drafted agreement, is a bit stronger than the way it's written here in your.
Cover the cost of town's cost when.
Well, the one in the agreement here, I think, is just that if you cease doing business, your successor would be required to negotiate a new agreement with the town, whereas I think our language was a bit stronger, wasn't it, in case of any kind of merger or takeover or?
I don't think they can.
No?
Well, let me put it to you this way, everything ends with you, so even if they try.
I'm trying to find it in our old one.
renegotiate.
In either case, under either agreement, under the state statute, the new entity would have to come
You'd
in.
have to follow the
Correct,
same
exactly.
agreement
So that-
anyway.
They'd have to renegotiate a
Exactly,
new host
so-
agreement and also come back.
You know, there's a lot of
implement the
duplicate things
planning
here
board.
through state and the cities, so we're running into both duplicate stuff, even when, when we were going through the application process. And there's all these check things that we're going through. It's very similar. So they're requesting us the same things even KP Law was putting into place, So there's a lot of repetitive patterns that we're seeing already. So if we're missing something, state is picking up anyway.
Yeah.
And enforcing us, so.
Okay, I just remember us having some discussion about that
Yeah.
because of what has happened with,
Yeah, that goes back to you, folks anyway.
Yeah.
group being sold out very quickly, et cetera. So we had concerns about that. I'm just not sure that that translated into the new one. So if it's not a big deal.
And just to be clear, I'm not going in here to, sell out and leave. I mean, if that happens, that's a different story, but that's not what I'm going in for. So,
Okay.
So I've got two questions. One is, what's the proper way of spelling Vulcan? Because it's in here two distinctly different ways.
There's two distinct spellings. One is for his name and the other is for the company. And if
Yeah,
I-
but
But if you
that's-
look on the signature page, it says Retailer Vulcan LLC,
well,
VOLKAN.
they actually forgot to put a DBA on there. So Volcan is my name,
Right.
Volcan, word on play with the cannabis,
Yeah.
is the corporation name.
Okay,
But the
but-
store name is not going to be Volcan, store name is going to be Dreamer.
No, but where the signature page is, it says Retailer Vulcan, VOLKAN LLC, which apparently,
that's
that's the
that
wrong
could be a
spelling.
mistake.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
Yeah, that could be a
So
mistake.
we want to correct that.
And you should also change it to Select Board instead of,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be
And the other question is, who is behind Vulcan? Who's the principals?
that would be me.
Just you, nobody else?
Nobody else, no.
Okay. And the other question is just idle curiosity. What storefront, what's it
So
replacing?
it's, you weren't at the meeting, so it's actually right next to Mikkel.
Okay. What was there before?
I think massage parlor, I think it was a massage parlor.
Oh, part of the
massage
hair
place. Not
studio
parlor,
was massage, maybe? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
it's the same size as Mikkel. So, I mean, it's kind of, when you go in there, there's a lot of walls, so it's, it doesn't look like it, but it's literally the same
Oh, it's
size
right
as
there.
Mikkel. So when you walk in, imagine after we renovate it, it's kind of look.
You're not going to have a drive-through like McCall's, are you? Just kidding.
And
Not yet,
what's the
maybe in
name
the
of it going
future
to
as they
be?
change the laws.
Dreamer.
Dreamer.
Okay.
I thought that was a road, a little bit of Dreamer, so I thought that was a good name for Southampton. It's not,
Okay.
it's a pretty good name. It's not invasive at all, so,
Yeah. And it doesn't let kids see anything.
no.
Yeah.
I mean, if they look at it, they'll probably think it's where they can buy a pillow or something,
Yeah.
if anything. But, no, as I told in the last meeting, I live in this town too. I have 2 kids myself, and one of them goes to Norris. And I want to make sure that it doesn't affect our kids in any bad shape whatsoever.
Yeah, no, understood.
I think you'll be proud of what I'm going to put in there. So we're working good with the designers. The progress is evolving, so it's going to come out something nice.
Good. All right.
does anybody else have any questions on the host agreement?
No, not yet.
Okay, so before we,
It's related to postage.
yep, thanks.
Cindy Palmer. I'm also on the planning board, and we know that the adult use marijuana bylaw went before a town meeting, and I am sure, because I haven't read the host agreement, is it all consistent with the bylaw that was passed? A lot of details in that bylaw.
That's a question for Ed and the attorney, I think.
Did our attorney, did you correlate with all the stuff that's in the bylaw?
I think the details you're specifically asking for will come back to the planning board when they apply for a special permit.
Okay, so, I mean, if the select board is going to approve a host agreement, hopefully they have made sure that that's everything that's in the bylaws and is at least addressed in some way.
Two separate pieces.
Yeah.
Cindy.
2 separate pieces?
Yeah, 2 separate pieces to this. Actually, if you get into the state piece, you can say 3 separate pieces to this.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
First the host agreement, then the license from the state.
Yeah.
And then they go in front of the planning board.
Okay, and then once the
Special
planning board
permit.
approves it,
And there,
then there's...
That's a special
hopefully
bylaw,
it's-
right? Yes.
Okay, sorry.
So they'll be coming back to you.
yes.
Good question, thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of process to go through still, so
Okay.
plenty of time too.
Is anyone ready to make a motion? Or,
Yeah, would move that with the review or the incorporation of the independent auditor into, well, what are we going to propose here? We're going to propose that we use our agreement, the one proposed by our lawyers.
That's what I would.
we propose our
recommend
agreement,
that.
I would sign it tonight, because our lawyers approved
Approved
it.
it.
But I don't
But
know that you're comfortable with
Right.
that, given that your attorney's not here, and he
I mean, I'm
proposed...
comfortable, but yours says, I think, 20,000 still though, right?
No,
Or-
No, it's the same, the terms are the same.
No, we'd put the terms
then,
in.
yeah.
They're not all the same, there's got the
I
audit
mean,
in there.
because
Well, no, ours has
what we
the
offer
auditor,
isn't
but
any
talking about the-
much
the
different,
money.
Monetary.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, so we have two host agreements, and when we had first put ours forward, it was, we hadn't voted on the $20,000 or anything. It was just a sample host agreement.
Right.
And then we got, even after the last meeting when Dick Evans was here, we had not heard that he was proposing that the terms go on his host agreement. So we're in agreement with the 3%, and we're in agreement with the $10,000 for 5 years, and our own host agreement that we know our lawyers are behind. If that was all the case, I would be comfortable signing that tonight. What I'm not comfortable is that our lawyer hasn't looked at your attorney's host agreement.
Yeah, no, I understand, and
So it's a matter of...
If you're willing to accept our agreement.
so can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't too important to he's got to be comfortable, we got to be comfortable. What if we give him X amount of days to have his attorney look at it? And if we need to have a special session just for approving it, I think 3 of us can get together and do it. But I want to make sure you don't sign something that you come back and say, well, wait a minute, that's not what you said at the meeting,
I mean, the biggest challenge was for me, it was the percentage and the fee.
Yeah.
Everything else is, like I said, it's pretty standard with the
Right.
state anyway.
If you have a comfort level.
I don't remember, like I said, I didn't go through sentence by sentence.
I would recommend you do that.
Well, we've just finished reading 8 to 10 host agreements, and some of them are clearly the same template, and other
Well,
ones have...
that's what, when I told Evans, I said, let's repropose our plan, and, I just went with, let's just keep all the Hamptons same. Northampton, Easthampton, Southampton.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was happening. My mind just goes strictly to the numbers rather than, all those little details of who's going to do the audit and whatnot, which those are pretty,
Right.
like I said, the state is more heavier on those than you guys are, so I'm not worried signing something that you're proposing. It's more the state that is the piece,
Yeah.
the biggest piece.
Well, for my issue, I'm not an attorney, so if I know that our host agreement was agreed upon by our attorney and the terms of 3 and 10 were on our host agreement, I would sign it tonight. What I'm not sure of what the difference is from a legal perspective between the two agreements, and Attorney Evans seems to want to go with his agreement. I'm not comfortable without it being reviewed by KP Law. It's our attorney that we pay for, so...
Well, from my understanding, and tell me if I'm misunderstanding this, if that paper goes to the KP Law is just going to copy that to their own agreement anyway, correct?
Well, similar to what we just did this year earlier with the,
Yeah.
with KP Law reviewing the other contract we had with the
With
water.
CEI.
They'll make some recommendations for language or include this or delete this. That's what I would like to just hear. I mean, if he's clear that he wants to go on his host agreement, then what we could do is ask KP Law for a review of it, make some suggestions, and if you did, I know you've been, you want to move this along, and I know it's a long process as it is. You mentioned 9 months to a year. I agree with John. I mean, if we can just pull something together as soon as we hear from KP Law, I'm sure 3 of us could get together and move.
I mean, I'm fine with that also. If that's...
Yeah. So in my mind, it's either approve it tonight on KP Law's host agreement, or ask for an opinion from KP Law on Attorney Evans' agreement, and hopefully we'll get something back soon, and we could pull together a meeting and just sign it off on it.
Well, the other, I think, option 3, if I can do that,
Yeah.
is let him have a copy of KP Law's agreement saying, this is what we want to sign.
has it.
Just check it out.
Come back.
He already has it.
I would rather go with KP Law's agreement rather than send it back.
Well, that's why
Yeah.
I'm saying I don't have problem signing it, because it's going to come back to you
Yeah.
guys anyway. So it's going to, I can't move forward without that
Right,
piece of the paper. So if, it's one thing, I love Dick, but it's at the end, it's my business, so it's my
Yeah.
decision,
And he has had the host agreement from KP Law for a very long time, since before the
Yeah.
public hearing.
Again, I didn't go, I didn't go, Dick did more than I, but I didn't go sentence by sentence.
So if you're comfortable with signing KP Law's agreement, I mean, that's the one we want,
Right.
right?
Yep,
As long as those, percentage and the fee was correct.
right.
Yeah, those
It'll
are-
I mean,
clearly,
that was my.
it'll clearly say,
Everything else to me was very same, in the same neighborhood of Northampton, Easthampton,
Yeah.
State. So it wasn't,
Okay.
I mean, I didn't see anything that's outrageous in that when I looked at, again, I didn't read it sentence, so.
It says, there's 3%
well,
and
I mean,
10,000.
And if I-
unless you have another opinion about this, Ed, I'm comfortable if the board would like to approve the 3% and the $10,000 for 5 years on the KP Law tonight, and if we find out that something happens afterwards and something needs to change, you're welcome back to
Just
readdress
clarification, the 10,000 annually per each of 5 years.
for 5 years, right? The term is for 5 years.
And the 3.
And that's,
3% is perpetual,
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Did they have that, Claude, that independent auditor in the KP law?
though. Yes.
They did, right?
It's in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, annually for the term of the agreement, and the term of the agreement is for 5 years.
So if we want, I'll make a motion that we use KP Law's version of the host agreement and ask to be signed by both parties.
Right, and if you could just specify in the motion that the impact fee would be 3% for 5 years.
Well, that's what's in the agreement already.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it
that was a
specifies that.
proposal from,
But that's what's in
Dick
KP
Evans.
Law agreement, correct?
Yes, it is. It's
Yeah.
on the second page right
Yeah.
here.
So it's right in
3%.
KP's Law's agreement.
This is KP, it says 3%, and then if you flip, it says $10,000 in the other
For
section.
5 years.
That's KP law?
Yes, yes.
So you had already talked to them about redrafting it for the 10,000?
Yeah, they put it into the new draft there.
okay,
So you're covered on
It's
the
already been
3%.
redrafted anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just has a couple extra things in there, one being the annual audit if we want.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it has, that your agreement, that Dick Evans' agreement doesn't have, is really the language around the audit.
Now, if, let me ask you a question. If, I think state has something like that too. If state is comfortable with, let's say they have their, and again, I'm not sure, we're all finding out as we move. If they have their parties that, works for the state that audits it, can we use that same audit?
Now, this gives us the option of auditing a town audit. Well, it doesn't mean we're going to. I mean, if we suspect something, then we have the
Again,
option.
that brings it back, I'm not here to take advantage
No,
of it,
I-
and this is control, this is very much control, this is like a pharmacy, this is very much control. They know exactly where that product came,
Yep.
where it's going, who's buying. We have to have your IDs in the computer system.
Sure.
They track it, they see it, they can audit it anytime, any day. We're not going into the business to do monkey business with that anyway, so I'm comfortable with that. I'm just trying to figure out the logistical
Yeah.
heartache behind it, okay, so at the end, we have it's going to be my accountant doing the
Right.
audits and everything, then maybe state is going to want to do their audits, and I'm hoping they're going to do it through the system that they have.
Yeah.
And now also I have to hire another independent auditor to do separate audit.
Why is
So-
it not for us?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
No, if we want to audit it,
You
we
understand what I'm trying to say?
we would have to pay for the
No, not
audit.
according to this.
That says no?
According to this
We have
agreement,
to request the
we
audit.
would request the audit,
not
and the company
automatic.
would have to pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Independent financial auditor at the expense of which shall be borne by the company.
Yeah. I personally don't see the need to put a company through that many hoops for audits. If there's a state audit to be done, I don't see why we can't just request a copy of the state audit
That's what I'm saying.
and
That's exactly what I'm saying.
not
But
put out any
that
money to it.
allows it. It doesn't say
During the
you
life
have
of
to
the
do it.
audit.
It says it allows us
But
to.
I don't see the need for our auditor to try and do something
Upon request.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
on top of what the state
Yeah,
does.
And that's the difference between the two contracts. One basically assumes that the state would automatically do that, and the other one allows us to have an independent audit.
If we want
If
to.
we
It doesn't
want to.
say we will. It said we may request.
Yeah. Yeah, if the state comes
I was
up
just
with,
saying.
We
if
wouldn't
you-
take
if you
advantage of
did-
you either. I mean, we're not here to,
I appreciate it.
we're not here to,
it gives us an option, that's all.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And if I remember on the last meeting, we went through all the clause that was concerning. So I don't, and that's why I'm comfortable signing, because I don't remember anything, other than those percentages and fees. I don't remember anything that was really, I was uncomfortable with. So, and like I said, a lot of those things are repetitive. I'm starting to get used to it anyway.
yeah.
Do we have a clean copy ready to sign tonight or not?
There's some blanks that need to be
Yeah, I
filled
mean,
in here.
Yeah.
like
Well, and again,
dates
just to
and
double
things,
check,
but-
because again, Volcan is in a couple of different spellings here, just to be sure that we've got it all correct in the
Yeah.
right places.
And
I mean,
So-
you can like sign it like tomorrow or something. I can always pick it up from Ed's office.
But just a little point of order, we got a motion here, and we need a second, just so we can talk more, but.
Okay.
Okay. And the motion included having it on the host agreement from KP Law with the 3% impact fee and the $10,000 prevention education for a 5-year
As
term.
outlined, correct.
Right.
So
I'll
who wants to
second.
second that?
Okay, so
John and Francine.
a question on the conversation part of it. If we can make another motion, if this goes through, that Ed completes the agreement and you're approved to sign it. So that way you don't have to wait for another
Perfect.
meeting.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Recess for 10 minutes, I can go do it.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah.
Fill in
That's
the
even
blanks.
better.
You got to change the name and all that too in one place, yeah? I personally would rather take your time, but it's up to you.
I'm going to the meeting tomorrow here at 1.
I mean, it's set up
Whatever.
for all 5 to sign, and I would.
Okay.
probably-
You'd rather
In
have
this
the 4 of
case-
us sign? Yeah, okay.
All right, then.
All right, that's
Let's do
totally
that.
fine. Is there any other discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. I have another question that's not directly related to the contract. You're an established business owner of a couple of different businesses in Northampton. What did you have to do, or what are you doing to learn about this particular business?
Well, this whole thing kind of in some ways started in Northampton, and ended up being the first one.
Right.
So it always took my interest. I'm not a user of this product. I never was. I tried it here and there. I never cared for it that much. But I don't want to name it, but I saw the benefits of this product in firsthand with somebody that's very close to me. So that got me interested in the product more and more. And so once the NETA took off and started running, I got interested not only that part, also the business part too. So, I mean, that's pretty much how I got into it. Now, learning about this product, I'm still new. I'm still learning. There's the business side, it's very complicated. There's too many steps. So we're just going step by step. And on the product itself, I'm actually still learning, to be honest with you. And I have pretty much ways to go before I'm an expert to say that I know this and I know that.
Great.
Yeah.
I hope you're very successful. I mean, it's a
Absolutely.
great location. You have the Harley Place right there. You have nothing south of Southampton right now.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So I hope it works out well. Great.
So he's going to make the changes, come back to us? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. You want us to
Yeah.
take a recess for a few minutes now?
Take like a 10-minute recess, and
So
then
we
we'll
just
go
wait.
do this.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll just hang around and we'll, okay,
Thanks.
thanks.
Great. Okay.
Hi, everybody, welcome back. Ed, thank you for getting the community host agreement together so that the board can sign it tonight. We've already voted to do that, so is the original, do I have the original, Ed?
What's that?
Is this the original here?
You've got two originals for signing by both parties,
Okay,
which are the two in front of you.
okay.
Okay.
So these two go.
And I will have to add the deed booking page to this handwritten in after the fact. But other than that, it's all filled in. 3% of annual gross sales and $10,000 annually for
there.
education as far as substance abuse or underage use goes.
Okay.
And it's, oh, is this, we're signing all of them?
Two of them.
Okay.
We each get one. And is it okay that Matt is on you?
What? It's okay. The quorum is 3.
Good.
So Wolfgang, do you see these continuing on long-term more businesses, or do you think it's going to level out once?
It's gonna level out. It's gonna, I mean, it's a very hot business right now, but it's also a very difficult business to get in because there's no backing from the government. Government also the bank, so you have to kind of like finance the whole thing yourself or with your investors.
So the banks don't recognize it yet?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
They don't even want to have anything to do with it. So right now, there's a bill in, I believe in Congress right now, it's called Safety Bank Act, I think, which is supposedly is going to lift that burden. So fingers crossed, hopefully. But till then, you know, because a lot of the loans, a lot of the mortgages approved by FDIC, federally, it's still illegal substance.
Right.
So it's a no.
That makes it more difficult for you.
Yeah, so it's the start of the business because of those reasons that's why you don't see a lot of them popping around the corner.
So it's cash intensive at first?
Correct, at first. But once that gap and the from CCC part, they're kind of like behind on all these applications.
Yep.
Once they catch up, then you're going to start seeing more of a little bit more of these all over the place. Then the market is going to kind of settle down, and it's going to dictate itself where it's going. So, but
hopefully-
I think that will happen in the next 5 years.
Matt,
So,
don't have any PC.
You're ahead of the curve anyways.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying. Yeah.
Good.
I got it.
Oh, okay. Those are,
Sign these two, one of them is for you as an original.
It's exciting.
yeah, it is exciting. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Congratulations.
All right.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
Go.
Yeah, good luck.
Yes.
Before I leave, can I ask for the question about cultivation center? Now, that's one of the other piece over here that I want to get into. And right now, there's 2 industrial park addresses that's assigned for cultivation centers. One is, correct me if I'm wrong, and one is where?
Valley.
Yeah. And the other one is?
Clark.
Yeah. So is that very restricted, or is there a plan that too, where if if I brought you a land, which I don't have by the way, but if I found a land and it's maybe convertible to industrial park so that we can put cultivation center, is that possible?
That's zoning.
Yeah, it's a zoning issue.
zoning?
You'd have to just go in front of the zoning. If it's not currently industrial, then that would be a discussion around whether or not it met the,
Yeah,
requirements of it.
And it's actually one of the things that Paul Deeman had mentioned as
Yep.
we got into this, is that, this is brand new to us. So,
to everyone.
it might be something, you'd want to bring back to the planning board and said,
Yeah.
okay,
I
you've
do.
got these two. I'm thinking about this. Is it possible to get it zoned, commercially or
Right, because
industrial to fit?
that's where I think the town will benefit even more. Definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Because that's the bigger chunk of this puzzle, so.
We're looking for more tax base, a larger
Yeah,
tax
I
base.
heard from the conversation, we need
Definitely
more
want to
money,
be open for business.
right? Okay. Well, thank you very much, I
All right,
appreciate it.
thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. All right, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay.
He doesn't have any samples, Tammy.
All right, moving on. But Chris reminded me of something that there were two presentations in the same evening not long ago. One of them was on the fiber optics, and the other one was on the limited sewer. And those videos have been posted on the website for Town of Southampton.
Both ECAT basically edited the videos. They have them posted on their website separately also, and we have them posted on the town website, both under the select board page and under the forms and documents page.
Great, thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Ed.
Great, thanks. That's great.
I had no choice. Christine kept hounding me.
Well, I think that they were great presentations, and unfortunately, it was a night that we weren't live, so I think a lot of people might
That's true, I
tune
forgot
in there.
about
And
that.
I really would encourage anybody listening tonight to do that, because they're only about 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes at the most, each of them. And I think you could learn a lot from the possible of fiber optic options, and then the wastewater small sewer systems.
And I think once we reconvene in September, we'll come back to visiting some of the select board goals that we had talked. That was partly why we brought those two presentations in, so we're going to pick that back up in September. Next on the agenda is the approval of the Water Department Agreement Amendment 1 with Comprehensive Environmental Incorporated for services for the DWSRF 4396 Southampton Water System Improvements. This is the one that we just recently got a document about. This is the one that has to do with the protection of the turtles, correct?
That is absolutely correct, and basically this, while it hasn't been reviewed by town council technically, this has the same terms and conditions in it that the CEI overall proposal had in it, so I would recommend that the board entertain, if you're going to entertain a motion to approve and sign this, to also entertain that with making the same amendments to it that were recommended for the overall proposal to the terms and conditions.
Which John had mentioned about the, according to Massachusetts law.
Well, that was the whole thing, because the legal recommended several changes.
Yeah, and I would recommend making those same exact changes to this, because it's going to have, this will have the same terms and conditions to it.
Did people have a chance to read that over, what we got?
The amendment? Yeah. I was wondering, where's the funding on this extra $8,800?
From the water department.
Okay, so they're going to fund it, so there's no issue there?
There's no issue there. It is available.
Yeah, it's pretty short and to the point.
Yep, and it's specific, again, I can't bring it up, but I did read it. It is specific to specific steps that they agreed to do for the protection of turtles,
A wood turtle.
the wood turtle
turtles, yeah.
specifically.
Yes.
Turtle protection plan, site monitoring, turtle sweeps, and then reporting.
And this is for the well rehabilitation
Yep.
portion of it. So they are around our well structure. They are not located where the pumping station is going to go on the Easthampton line.
Yep.
That's right. The amount. That's right.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, the dollar amount was just mentioned, but it's $8,850 to incorporate this protection into the project.
Right.
Would someone like to make a motion, or
Yeah.
would you like to just talk about it?
I'll make a motion that we accept CEI's amendment to the agreement for professional consulting services with the changes that our legal counsel advised us of for the other CEI terms and conditions, with addition of adding the Massachusetts between by and law. So this incorporates all the changes as well as the one that we made with the Massachusetts wording. That make sense?
I was going to say, did you get that, Ed?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
I'll give you a minute to catch up on that one, Ed.
All right.
And a second by Chris.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. On bylaw advisory committee makeup and charge discussion.
And I'm halfway through that, but I haven't finalized it, so I'll have it for your next meeting.
Okay, so we'll pass on that one. Norman Smith, resignation from the Edwards Library Trustee Board.
Yes, Lucy Dalton received resignation from Norman Smith, effective immediately. So this will be, if anyone's interested, it would be an appointment up until the next annual town election.
Okay, and they would make a recommendation and give us some paperwork, and we'd address that?
Yes.
Okay. Next is the town administrator's evaluation. So just collecting the select board evaluations. I will be averaging out the scores, and then likely we will be putting it on the agenda for the second select board meeting in September. Will everyone be here for that one? I know that you're gone for the next one, but the one after that?
Yes.
The 17th?
The 17th?
Yep.
It would be nice if everybody was able to be here. So that's what my plan is to...
17th?
Yeah.
Yep, I'm here.
Pardon?
I'm here.
Okay, good. So that's what the plan is, that we would do that in open session on the 17th, and I'll be getting back. I'm going to be sharing all the documents with all the board members once I compile them and send them out, and then we'll review them, okay? Bylaw amendment, Article 7, restriction in issuance of local licenses and permits. Is that,
This did not originate, this change did not originate with the bylaws committee.
okay,
It
No.
was, I'll let Ed explain it.
okay.
This is a follow-up to our discussion last year that Mass General laws used to be very strict, that we do have a bylaw that allows the town to not issue licenses, permits to anyone that is behind in their taxes, water bill payments, what have you. But it followed the old Mass General laws, which they had to be in excess of 12 months in arrears or greater. When the Municipal Modernization Act was approved in, I think it was the fall of 2016, it actually allowed for towns under local option to have less of a requirement. So, you know, it could be 30 days, could be 3 months, could be 6 months. So I had drafted an amendment change because the Board of Selectmen had talked about it, the Finance Committee and the internal finance team had all talked about it, and agreed that greater than 6 months was a fair term in case somebody fell on hard times, just unusually. So I had sent that along to KP Law, and what they came back with and recommended is, rather than placing that 6-month term right in the bylaw, that to just leave it open-ended, which you have in front of you, but that the Board of Selectmen should take up and approve a policy that, in this case, be anyone in arrears 6 months or greater. The town departments may withhold permits, licenses for any back taxes and greater than that period. So two pieces of the puzzle. One wanted to follow up with the bylaw change, and then the Board of Selectmen should undertake a policy that goes along with that. That probably would say, upon town meeting acceptance of the bylaw amendment and approval by the Attorney General's office, that the policy goes into effect, that the period be 6 months or greater for withholding licenses and permits, as far as owing back taxes or water fees.
And we'd actually addressed this in the past.
Yes, like
We
I
already
say,
had
this is,
discussion
yeah,
about
we had
this some
talked
time
about
ago.
it. This is the actual
Yeah.
bylaw amendment that would go along with that. And since we are going to need a special town meeting this fall to actually take, there's a couple things that will be needed, but one of the things that we should take back is the bonding request to for the East Street Bridge, because what we found out was that, I think it was in January, that was approved in January at the special town meeting for the bonding. The time limit between if a special town meeting, it's voted on first, and the actual election where it's put on a ballot for a debt exclusion, it's not supposed to, I think it's exceed 90 days. This exceeded 90 days, would have, even if it was put on the regular annual election and not the special town election. So what we have to do is the election vote is still good, but we have to go back and get another town meeting vote for the bonding and the debt exclusion on the East Street Bridge.
Okay. That's the next thing on the agenda anyway, is looking at that date for the meeting. So has everybody had a chance to read this bylaw suggestion?
Originals.
Does anybody have any questions about it? Are you comfortable voting, putting a motion together?
One question. And I don't know if it's I got a question. I don't know if it's applicable to this or not, but it just reminds me of something we did. So if you go down to C, where it says any party shall be given an opportunity to enter into a payment agreement, so on and so forth. And we had a payment agreement, or maybe more, for real estate back taxes, that the agreement was made and the amount being paid every month was less than the accrued taxes that were going on. So this person had a legal agreement, and technically we couldn't foreclose, but yet they would never catch up. They were falling behind. So is this the place to make sure to put some wording like that, or is that just a policy or procedure, Ed, that?
It's a policy and procedure, because actually a legal, shall we say, agreement for payments, and I'd have to go back and look, but my memory is that the legal requirement is, I believe you have to put 25% of what you owe down to actually start that payment plan with the treasurer.
But that's not what happened.
And that is not what happened, yeah. And then the initial shall we say, payment that was put down was well below the 25% requirement.
But it was still a contract we made. We're
It's a
kinda
contract we
stuck.
made. I will say this, that, you know, we currently have an elected collector treasurer that knows much better and what is the legal requirements, but it's also, in my opinion, another rationale or reason to keep pushing away at having an appointed collector treasurer rather than elected collector treasurer. Yeah, because there are definitely requirements and knowledge that need to go with that particular position, which Jen does have, but being an elected position, you don't know, it can become a popularity contest, and somebody can get into that elected position that really doesn't have the knowledge, education, background to do it correctly, so.
So the onus would be on the departments to
Yeah, and
make
it's
wise decisions around
legal decisions, yeah,
a payment plan.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, but that, you know, John's right, that happened.
It did.
Yeah, I mean, we ended up
I absolutely know.
behind the eight ball even further.
Yep.
So basically, you're saying that doesn't go here, it's just, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are state statutes that cover that the collector treasurer should know and follow.
It's more of a training, okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Would someone like to make a motion then? And we're making a motion to approve this and put it in front of the voters, correct, Ed?
What's that?
We're making a motion to approve this and put it in front of the voters at the next town meeting?
At the next, yes, whether that be, yeah, which would be a special, so.
Okay. Okay. Would someone like to do that?
Can I have it back? No.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I'll move to approve the change to Article 7, restriction on issuances of local licenses and permits, as proposed, putting the cap at 6 months in arrears rather than, well, no, the changes to this document, period. No time limit set here.
Correct, and then we'll have to come back and make a vote for a policy to go into effect upon acceptance and approval of this.
Thank you.
Second?
John seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
The next item is the special town meeting. And like Ed said, this is primarily because of the date difficulties with the East Street Bridge project. So what window of dates would meet the, we're not going to be fortunate enough to have just one meeting in the next few months. We're going to end up having to have another one later on in the year with when the free cash is certified, right?
Correct.
So we're talking about one in September?
I would probably say at this point, probably realistically, one in October, because probably at the next meeting, you're probably going to want to open up the docket, shall we say, for any articles for that special town meeting. And
Right.
probably at that next meeting, actually pick a firm date for some Tuesday in October, and I will, in the meantime, find out the availability of the school for the Tuesdays in October.
Okay.
In October is within that time frame we need to do it in.
Actually, it's funny. I can say this after the fact, but if you do this special town meeting, vote first before the election, there's a set time limit.
Yeah,
If you do them in reverse and have the annual election first and then your town meeting or special town meeting, there's no time limit. However, bond council and town council says you're better off doing it sooner rather than later, number one, so people don't forget about, why they voted for it in the first place.
Yep.
And also number two is VHB is going to be finalizing their 75% design to send to the state fairly soon. So we want to get it done for the actual fact of having it approved on both ends, because we're going to be getting ready to actually go out and send out the request for bids for this project. So we want to know that everything's in line.
So this came about, the necessity of this was when we switched and did the town meeting first and election second?
I won't even say that, because, I mean, that's part of it, but the flip side of that is if we actually had known or paid attention, there might have been some possibility of that looking and saying, okay, let's move that special, could we wait, 6 weeks and move that special town meeting out a little further that was held in, I forget if it was January or February for this particular one, and come within that window. But yes, another piece of the puzzle is switching those dates.
Okay, so October would be perfectly fine for the window.
Yeah, because I seem to remember that there's like a 35-day time requirement from actually announcing a special town meeting to the actual date or something like that. But Robert, is it 2 weeks? Okay, so we could do probably late September then, too.
Okay, I mean, anything that would make this project,
Move it along.
Move along.
would be good.
Okay, so I would say end of September, beginning of October, but I will find out the availability of the school as far as other functions and whatever, and bring that back at the next meeting.
Okay, the next meeting would be the Tuesday right after Labor Day then. Okay, so any other necessary business that cannot wait until the September 3rd regular Select Board meeting? Anybody have anything? We're not going to be able to approve any of the PCFs because they have not gone in front of the Finance Committee yet. So all of them are deferred until our next meeting.
Okay.
And there are no licenses or permits, so the warrants.
Okay, we're looking at warrant for vendor payment, W's 20-7 for $301,824.45. Payroll warrant 20-6 for $246,822.47. And payroll deduction warrant 20-6 for $41,264.73.
Any questions on the warrants? Obviously, we get a lot of detail from what makes up these payments, but does anybody in the board have any questions? Okay, there are no other documents requiring signatures, and there are no minutes to approve. No, we got an email. Lucy is following up on all the committees, Ed, that have minutes. There's a bunch of our spring minutes with a lot of budget discussion.
That's all me, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good luck with that.
Thank you. Well, I've got, Judy's willing to
Watch the video.
watch the video, so I think I'm going to type up what I've got in the rough draft out of my notes and give her that, and let her watch some of the videos, and between the two of us, we'll
Well, we
back
also.
here for approval.
Also, would be good to get another person who might be willing to
backup.
do minutes, because especially with all the budget meetings in the spring,
Yeah.
she works for another municipality, and it's
Yeah.
really tough to,
Yeah, and Judy's willing to do it off
The
the
video?
videos, and if, that doesn't work out well, or if we really want someone here, Robin Richards has said that she would be interested in
Great.
doing that as a fill-in,
'cause
so.
that's a lot for you to
Yeah.
do this. Yeah, that'd be great.
Mm.
That can happen right away, right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so pending items. Does anybody have any questions about any of the punch list, so to speak?
I would like to add, well, I guess either under old business or under pending. Getting back on the schedule for committee and board reports to the select board. You know, I think people want to share what it is that's going on, other than the liaison reports that we provide.
Yeah.
And I think it does a lot to facilitate the communication between us and those committees, and also as a way of informing the residents what's going on. And it brings us closer together, I think, and helps us do a better job of coordinating. So
Yeah.
that schedule, if we could get it going.
It starts in,
happy to work on
it starts in October.
Well, no, it started in October because that was the first time we did it. It was meant to be 12 months. When
Then
I,
I would-
when I did
that-
it originally, I started it in October because that's how long between I first got on and then had this idea to move, to set this up. But I'll be willing to look at it and set it up for 12 months.
Yeah, because you reminded me of that, and I went
Yeah.
and looked at it, I said, okay, I don't have to worry about this till
Okay, so
October,
I'll take a look and I'll redo it for 12 months so that we can get back on schedule. And then we should share that with everybody so that they
Yeah.
know when they're on the docket.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's a great, cycle because you
Yeah.
group things really nicely.
Okay, I'll do that.
Anybody else have any questions about the pending items?
I'm just saying, wasn't there something that last week that was mentioned, or last time mentioned about the Old Town Hall, some meeting or something that was happening there? Or-
Yes, we're setting that up.
Okay,
Yep.
still happening, okay.
And one of the things we talked about, it was a goal, at least mine anyways, is to relook at that short-term, long-term disability. 'Cause I think there's a lot of money in there, as well as the ability to provide a better service to the folks. I have a contact I just got recently of somebody in South Hadley that does this stuff, and we don't have to use this particular person, but we need to get, I think, somebody in here to help explain it to us.
Right.
So I don't know how we go about getting a person, if we, like I said, I've got a card for one person, but again, I can't vouch for the services or not, but just reminded me we need to do it.
Okay.
Do you have a suggestion, Ed, on that?
Well, basically, what we'd want to do is put together the parameters of what we're looking for and then send that out for proposals.
I guess before we do it, maybe you agree or disagree, but I'd like to know what's out there before we know what we want, you know what I mean? I'm not 100% versed in how this will all work. So I don't want to ask for something I'm not sure what I'm asking for. So I was thought maybe we can get a company or two, or somebody who, I don't know if a broker's the right word, to come in here and say, here's what the market is.
Yeah.
Here's different ways you can do this, and then we put something together and send it out.
Yeah, I mean, the good way to do it is to have somebody who's, more educational, informational, as opposed to necessarily representing one particular
Right.
company.
Right.
And so the backstory is we're sort of self-insuring the disability, and we're looking to see what is out there for plans.
Well, it could be self-assuring, or it could be we buy
Well, we're
a
currently
plan
we're
that covers
self-insuring.
from zero.
Right, we're currently,
Already
right.
self-insured.
Yeah.
So we're looking to see if we could do better.
Yeah, do we want to buy a plan that covers it from $0? Do we want to self-insure the first $1,000 and then buy a policy? Yeah. If you want, I'll call this company and just find out if they do any of that and what the parameters are, and if they'll give me some details, I can just bring it back to you folks. Again,
Have them come in and talk.
well, I don't want to have them come in unless I don't know them yet. I just want to do a little research if it's okay with
Yeah.
the board. And if
I'm happy to do a little bit of research, too. I have a
Yeah.
couple of other places I can get just general information that we can start a discussion.
So maybe if it's on the next agenda, we can
Yeah, why don't
come
we do
back with
that?
some
On
thoughts.
September 3rd, let's put a discussion about short-term, long-term disability, and we'll come back with whatever,
Yeah,
just to educate ourselves a little bit about various terms and
yeah.
how much flexibility there would be.
Yep.
I think on this list, Ed, for me, what's important is that money that's already been allocated, or like the Old Town Hall and the Green Communities Grant, just don't want to lose that. So if we can continue to move on those two things, that the town's already approved the town hall, and we've already received the Green Communities Grant, we just have to look at what energy savings we can maximize and prove. and we're looking a lot at Norris School for that. Anything else?
No, I think whatever we might have to do to keep up with the legislation on the bike path issues in terms of being able to try to find some money to get this ball rolling. So whatever contact we might need to make with local officials to help lobby for us.
Well, that reminds me of another thing when we were talking about goals. One of the things that I had mentioned is, I mean, right now, there is a race, you know, like there's people running for states, our representatives, our senator, I should say, state senator. But, you know, Lindsay Sabados sent a very nice letter to us after the last storm saying that, you know, what can she do to help us, that she knew that we got hit very hard. I know she has office hours here, but it wouldn't be, I mean, I think having either a representative from this committee be a liaison to our state rep and senator would be a very good idea, or inviting them on some kind of a cycle to come and give us some legislative updates and to let them know what some of our priorities are.
Or both.
Yeah.
Both. She just wrote a good article about school funding in the paper a couple days ago. So what do folks think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think to build a relationship with the people who represent us so that we're, and include Ed in that, so that we're in the pipeline of knowing when things are coming up and what might be available might put us in a better position.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it needs to be somebody just on the select board, it could be some other people in town.
But having them come here, if
Yeah.
time is available once in a while, would be great.
Yeah, if you
And have them
get them to
here.
come in once or twice a year, it'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, for an update.
Lindsay seems to
Lindsay
be
does
very
it, she's a lot of,
active.
yeah, very accessible.
And right now, Senator Humison is running for mayor of Westfield, and I don't know, I know one person running for
John Velas,
John Velas, his seat, but I don't know, it's a ways away.
yeah.
And John Vila seems very interested in the local communities. He actually, he reached out to me about a week ago, and we had a coffee, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's, what, 13? It's quite a few communities
I saw this.
that he represents. So next steps would be not necessarily assigning somebody as a liaison, but seeing if they're willing to be on the calendar once or twice a year. I'm happy to reach out to both of them and ask if that would be something that they might be willing to do, starting maybe with Senator Humison, just because if he does give up a seat, at least he can kind of give us a little bit of a...
Well, plus he's tied into the Greenway
Right.
funding.
Right.
Yeah.
He also
that'd be
helped us
Maybe
with
he'd give
the,
us an update on
Yeah,
that.
we could start with him, that would be great.
Yep.
And he did help the Council on Aging get the
Right.
funding for the pickleball.
Yep.
He's also the one that was instrumental in getting us the funding for the emergency generator here at the town hall.
So maybe combine an update and a thank you for all his effort.
That's a good idea.
Right. Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. Why don't I reach out
idea.
to both of them and ask, maybe in a few months, but ask Senator Humison if he'd be willing to come and just meet with the board and just
Yeah.
give us a little update, and we can say thank you to
Yeah.
him.
Be great.
All righty, we already talked about the calendar, open time for the public. Would you like me to read all of this, so anybody like to?
I already did my Celebrate Southampton.
Okay.
I'm just gonna do that again.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay,
Then I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
all righty. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, good night.
Great.
Good night.
Thank you.
Tim.
Lights out.
Thanks, Robert.